The IUCN Red List is a database of over 150,000 species, most of which are plants and animals. But still, despite this being a lot of species, there are still many known and discovered species that are not on this list. And of the 150,000, nearly 21,000 don't even have a conservation status. But many of these data deficient and non-evaluated species are threatened with extinction. But how do you save a species if you don't know where it is, how many there are, or even what it threatens it? It is important to assess the risk of extinction for a species so that we know how to save them. And there are many species that are not evaluated or data deficient. So here are a few species that are not evaluated or either data deficient that may be at risk of extinction. The Voeltzkow's chameleon is a chameleon that is colorless and has no horns, that lives in northwestern Madagascar. The chameleon likely eats small amphipods, and the maximum length of this species is 6 inches or 15 centimeters. The Voeltzkow's chameleon is not evaluated, and it was last seen in 1913 before being rediscovered in 2018. The Voeltzkow's chameleon population, range, and threats, if any, are unknown, which is concerning due to such information being vital for the protection of a species. Why Voeltzkow's chameleon matters. We do not fully understand Voeltzkow's chameleon's important ecological role in the biodiverse forests of Madagascar. Knowing more about Voeltzkow's chameleon means knowing more about the biodiverse, understudied, and threatened rainforests of Madagascar. And protecting this species would mean protecting all of these rainforests as well. The species has only been found in rainforests, so it's not much of a stretch to say that the Voeltzkow's chameleon is susceptible to deforestation. With this in mind, know that your paper and cardboard products come from, so that you can buy responsibly. And recycle clean and dry paper and cardboard, always. Advocate for the protection of Madagascar rainforests, and support organizations that are dedicated to the conservation of wildlife in Madagascar. Arapaima mapae is an Arapaima species that has the defining feature of having one row of small teeth, unlike Arapaima gigas, which has 2 rows of big teeth. Arapaima mapae lives in Lago de Amapa, which is in the Amapa state of Brazil. As an Arapaima, the species eats fruits, insects, fish, and even birds, and small to medium mammals that are close to the water. The maximum length of this species is probably about 10 feet, as the similar species Arapaima gigas has a max length of 10 feet. Arapaima mapae is data deficient, but does have a known range, and is likely threatened by overfishing, habitat degradation, and the introduction of other Arapaima species. Why Arapaima mapae matters. Not only is Arapaima mapae understudied and threatened, every Arapaima species is understudied and threatened as well. Arapaima mapae not only maintains prey populations as a major predator, but also maintains the forest itself as a seed disperser. What you can do about it. Advocate for the further research of the genus Arapaima and for the enforced protection of all Arapaima species. Eat only species low on the food chain, so predators high on the food chain like Arapaima do not have to suffer hunting pressure. The Omotemi rabbit is a large rabbit species that is said to be mostly grayish-black with a white belly. This species lives in a mountain range in the Sierra Madre del Sur, which is in the Guerrero state of Mexico. The species likely eats leaves and grasses, and of the 4 complete specimens ever found of the species, the largest one measured 1.44 feet. The Omotemi rabbit is data deficient. The most recent evidence of the species being still alive is a pelt donated by local hunters in 1998. The IUCN Red List red list states that the species is probably one of the rarest mammals on Earth. The rabbit is threatened by poaching for sustenance and habitat loss and fragmentation, which is caused by ranching and logging, why Omotomi rabbit matters. The rabbit is a seed disperser in the biodiverse carbon sinks, of which are dense, temperate, and tropical forests. And given we only have 4 specimens and a pelt of the species, we know very little about the species at all. Omotomi rabbit is threatened by poaching and logging, which are common problems throughout the world. So addressing these problems would save many more species other than Omotomi rabbit. What you can do about it. Cattle pastures and ranches take up a lot of land for relatively little food. So it's important to have a lot of plants in your diet, since that food is uses land more efficiently. Also support organizations that are looking for lost species like the Omotomi rabbit. And awareness can always effectively encourage the conservation of any species. Titicaca aresias is a relatively large pupfish that is faintly colored and lives in Lake Titicaca, which is a high elevation Andean lake that borders Peru and Bolivia. This large pupfish has a max length of 11 inches and eats small fish and aquatic invertebrates. Titicaca aresias is data deficient. The species was last seen in 1952, but there have been no extensive efforts to look for the species. Titicaca aresias is threatened by invasive trout, pollution such as zinc, copper, and pesticides, fertilizers, and agricultural runoff. Why Titicaca aresias matters. The species is the largest member of its genus. The species' major importance in the ecosystem is not fully understood. This species is threatened by trout, which have wreaked havoc in Lake Titicaca's ecosystem. So removing trout there would save far more species than Titicaca aresias. What you can do about it. Support organizations that are looking for lost fishes, like this one. Advocate for substitutes to pesticides and fertilizers. And raise awareness about the real cost of stocking non-native fish in bodies of water. The animate barb is a barb that is silver colored and has some of its fins lined red. The species lives in central Vietnam and may be omnivorous due to similar species also being omnivorous. The max length of this species is probably unknown. The animate barb is data deficient. The species is only known from 1 specimen collected from a Vietnam river in 1936 and 2 specimens collected in 1989 with no specified location. The suspected reason for the species' decline is the deforestation that happened in Vietnam during the 70s. And this deforestation took place where the fish was last found. And the animate barb matters. Very little is known about this species, and only 3 specimens have ever been collected of this species. The species is part of the Vietnamese forests and rivers, which are very biodiverse. Protecting the rivers where this species resides would save many more species. What you can do about it. Advocate for habitat restoration, especially in biodiverse places like Vietnam. Support organizations that work to conserve Vietnamese wildlife, and support conservation efforts for lost species in general. The spinach pipefish is a pipefish that has a light-colored underside and a striped tail that lives in the Ramu Sepik River system in Papua New Guinea. The spinach pipefish diet is unknown, but similar species have been observed eating copepods, amphipods, and even mosquito larvae. The species has a max length of about 6 inches. The spinach pipefish is data deficient. The species was last seen in 1985, but has not been specifically surveyed for and has never been given a population estimate. The species is threatened by metal mining, industrial and agricultural pollution, and may possibly be threatened by bycatch or even over-collection for the pet trade. Why the spinach pipefish matters. Very little is known about New Guinea's wetlands. in general. But we already know that these ecosystems are incredibly biodiverse. The spinach pipefish is the only evaluated freshwater pipefish endemic to Papua New Guinea, and the general protection of freshwater pipefishes would save many different species of pipefish that are threatened by fishing and collection for pet trade. What you can do about it: advocate for the further research and conservation of undervalued species such as spinach pipefish, as well as several other pipefish and seahorses. Support organizations that work to conserve Papua New Guinea wildlife. And buy and use metal products responsibly. Recycle metal when you can, and if you can't, find ways to reuse, upcycle, or sell the metal. As you can see, I used a lot of sources to find all this information about all these species. Thanks for watching.